So I guess what I'm saying is it's time to live in an abundance mindset. The other shoe is not going to drop, and if it does, I have the tools to get through it. I'm not going to live my life scared of things getting too good. That just sounds wild coming out of my mouth. Instead, I'm going to say I'm excited to see how good things are going to get. And that little mantra, I think, is going to change everything. Hello, and welcome back to another week of Calling in Sick. I'm your host, Alex Wilderson. It's good to be back in the solo saddle. I feel like the trauma therapy is truly working. Thank you. Which is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. The top 3 things that I've learned from trauma therapy so far. Big arm waving. I've had I think a month of it. So we should probably do another episode on this once I get through it and graduate from trauma therapy, because you can graduate from trauma therapy. That is my goal. I usually go on Saturdays to trauma therapy, but this Saturday is my 31st birthday and it's falling on a Saturday. And I'm going to have 3 days of IVIG leading up to it. And St. Cooper is on a work trip in Chicago. So your girl is literally flying solo dolo this week, full of all kinds of anxiety and worry, which we will address in this episode. But I'm here, I'm doing it live, I'm doing it scared, and nothing has gone awry. Sometimes life can just be that simple. Where's the wood I have to knock on? I'm just a little stitious. Quick housekeeping. Please follow, like, and subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already. And here's a free cameo for you. Hi, your friend thinks that you have some trauma that you need to work through. It's time to consider trauma therapy. You're along for the ride? Let's go into the nitty-gritty of it. Okay, so for those of you who listen in every week, you know that I've had some little T and big T trauma in my life. I had a kidnapping experience when I studied abroad in college that I thought I had just, pushed away in the back of a closet to never be disturbed again, which unfortunately got brought right up to the surface this year when our house had an attempted break-in at 2 o'clock in the morning, which, kind of set off my mental health into a whole cascade of things. And my family and friends who care about me deeply said, hey, Alex, it might be time to go to trauma therapy and take care of some of this stuff. So I saddled up, because I'm a girl of action, and I started going to trauma therapy. So trauma therapy is different than normal talk therapy. Both of them, you can have talk components like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, but trauma therapy targets specifically the trauma that's stored deep within the left hemisphere of your brain. It tries to kind of pull those memories up and kind of dislodge their emotional control over you. And different therapists have different approaches to that. It can be through talking, through EMDR, through hypnosis, ketamine therapy, or psilocybin therapy. There's so many different approaches to trauma management, or as they say in the therapy world, post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, fair warning, I'm talking a little bit out of my ass here because I've only been going to trauma therapy for about a month. But because I have such bad brain fog, I just want to get it all out now and give you guys the play-by-play. So if you too have been thinking about perhaps going to trauma therapy or looking into it, you have the warm and fuzzies of a little bit of a playbook that you can see that someone else has gone through it and been okay. Now, if you listened to the last Chaos episode with Cooper, you know that I dated around before I found my one and only trauma therapist. She is amazing. She was the second therapist I dated, and I got married to her, much like how I dated Cooper, who was my second boyfriend, and then married him. The reason I went with her wasn't just because she offered EMDR and hypnosis and talk therapy, which were the 3 types of therapy tools I was most interested in, but because the vibes were good. She feels like a person I've known forever, sitting down in her office, which is so calm and peaceful and kind of dark and moody, and there's blankets and a leather couch and there's a sound machine on, and you just feel safe. You feel really, really safe in that room, and I know it's intentional. She also has she also has a motherly vibe, which makes sense. She's the mother of 5 children, and I have a feeling she has a lot of fake children, as those kind of personalities usually do. And so you're disarmed, which allows you to feel safe exploring and talking about all the things that maybe you don't want to talk about, or that you think that you've had control over, and then all of a sudden feelings start percolating up and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? That is the good sign that you have landed with the right practitioner. So my therapist told me I have somewhere in between 8 and 17 sessions ahead of me until I can graduate from trauma therapy. I'm very competitive, so I have the goalpost of not just completing, but smashing through trauma therapy. I'm gonna make this trauma my bitch. Yeah! That's probably not a PC thing to say anymore, but I'll address it in trauma therapy. So I asked somebody to confess. It was not what I thought it was going to be. Not the big T trauma, the attempted kidnapping, attempted home invasion. Not that at all, actually. It had everything to do with the little T trauma, or what I had been referring to little T trauma, which was my medical history and my family's medical history. It took me one session to realize how much I had normalized all of these things that had happened to not just me, but my family, had impacted me. So we have had so much health stuff in my family, from amputations to cancers to organ failure to mental health crises. And I'm not just talking about my nuclear family, but my extended family. It has felt like everyone has gotten to where, at times it felt like we were just fucking passing the baton to each other, and it'd be like crisis to crisis to crisis. I've been sick since I was 5 years old. My brother had some health issues too. So we were in and out of the hospital, doctor's appointments, taking medications for basically all of my memorable life. And because we were doing it together, it made it feel normal. And what I didn't realize is that that had a massive consequence in my life. It made me think that all of those, what I called little T traumas, made me not worthy to get mental health help, because it wasn't some grandiose thing like getting kidnapped or having a home invasion or being assaulted. It was these little spikes that just added up over time, with some really big spikes too that I just glossed over. But the most important thing out of that, and in unpacking that, what I realized, it doesn't matter if it's a big T or a little T to you. If your life is getting crippled by some event or series of events, you deserve to get help and to have support and to get new tools to deal with it, regardless if you think it's trauma or not. So I'm making it a huge priority to focus on not normalizing health crises, no matter how much of a tool or crutch that's been for me for the last 25 years. I'm putting that down, and I'm going to recognize and see it for what it all is. It's hard. It is hard to be sick every single day of your life. And I'm not trying to solicit pity when I'm saying that, but instead, I guess what I've realized out of all of this is that you can still be a positive person and have that be your North Star. Have hope, have gratitude, see the good or the silver lining in things, and still recognize hard things for what they are. Hard. Like most things, chronic illness, it's the duality, it's the gray, and one does not take away from the other. Which I guess brings me to my second biggest lesson I've learned in trauma therapy so far. Because my life has been so consumed by health crises, my own, my loved ones, I have been in a state of fight or flight for probably 25 years. That's obviously not healthy. That's obviously not good for anybody. And candidly, what I'm about to share, I feel like I've at times rolled my eyes at this because the solution to it just feels so woo-woo. But I'm realizing that I carry this underlying fear of things getting good. I've been constantly kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, that there's a cap on how good life can get. And you should be thankful for what you get, because it could always be so much worse. And, you've felt those worst places. So why can't you just be happy with what you have right now? But that's so like flare-up mind thinking. And I've talked about it before, but when we're in a flare-up, we make our world small and put it in this little box to protect ourselves and have some semblance of control over our lives, our bodies, our minds. But if you let that stay your whole life, you are too scared to have fun. You're scared when things start to go right in your life. You start seeing situations, or you might even start being suspicious that good events or people aren't what they seem, that everything will change or become undone. And I think where maybe it gets a little woo-woo that I'm trying to work through is this fear of things getting good or worrying about the other shoe always going to drop. Am I self-sabotaging and not letting myself go past? Let it be good. Let it get better. And I don't know what the answer is, but I have a pebbled thought that subconsciously maybe I am, however horrible and disgusting that is to say. So what I've been doing every single day is when I wake up in the morning, the first thing that I say to myself now is, all right, universe, okay, God, show me how good it can get. There is no cap to how good life can get. There's enough good to go around. Now, of course, we live in a world where the news is incredibly salacious and everything seems like it's about to just shatter and fall apart and is so negative and bad. And yes, there are a lot of shitty things happening in this world right now. But that doesn't mean that there isn't good still and that there isn't more good that can happen. And then at the end of every single day, I write down 3 good things that happened in the day. Now, I'm finding this to be a little bit different than my gratitude journal because it's not necessarily things that I'm super grateful for, but things I just want to recognize as being really, really good. Like, I caught 4 baby lizards one day. I am still on my lizard obsession. And so I wrote that down as a great thing. It was a good lizard day. I'm not necessarily grateful that I had a 4 lizard day, but it was a good part of my day. And in doing this, now, and since I've called myself out on it, I've started noticing more and more in myself when my mind starts to go into these ruminations and spiral. So Cooper is in Chicago this week for work. I'm so proud of him. I'm so proud of us for being independent from each other and doing our own lives right now. But I miss him so fucking terribly. Please come home soon. I am not able to cook for myself, and I did Uber Eats my dinner tonight. And I had bone broth for lunch and a smoothie for breakfast. I had 3 meals, but 2 of them were pretty low lift. And I just didn't have it in me to make the 3rd. Tangent. Cooper's in Chicago this week for work. I have IVIG this week. I am moving IVIG from 4 days to 3 days. Now, at the start of the week, once Cooper got on the airplane and I had convinced him I'm all set, I'm good, I'm not worried about any of this, I was sitting at home and I realized I am fucking worried about this. IVIG in 3 days from 4, what if something goes wrong? What if I need to go to the emergency room? What if I go anaphylactic from this? I've got my people around me that can help support me, but my person who is my rock for everything isn't here and couldn't get here immediately. He wouldn't be there holding my hand. I'd have him on the phone, obviously. But he wouldn't physically be right next to me. And then I had the thought, well, I've been ruminating on all of this. Am I going to call it into existence if I recognize it? And that is just utter bullshit, I'm pretty sure. Because how would me being worried about the what ifs for a medication that has notoriously been a little bit difficult for me to palate cause me to have a bad reaction to it? And when I stopped and kind of thought about that a bit more, I then made myself say, okay, but what if it all goes right? What if it's the smoothest IVIG ever? We know the rate that I flare at. We know the exact rate that I start having a reaction to IVIG. We now know I have this MTHR genetic mutation that makes me metabolize Benadryl a bit faster. We have a perfect protocol for handling my reactions to IVIG. It could go brilliantly well. And then I've got a friend staying with me so I can come back, be watched. I've got watchful eyes on me. I can rest without anxiety that I would be having a reaction by myself at home. So I'm trying to actively challenge myself to stop thinking about the fear of things getting too good. Things are allowed to go well. Things are allowed to go good. And if this last year is a reflection of any of that, things have gone well. Yeah, there were some pretty shitty things that happened in this last year, but overwhelmingly, I'm so grateful and so proud of this last year. So I guess what I'm saying is it's time to live in an abundance mindset. The other shoe is not going to drop, and if it does, I have the tools to get through it. I'm not going to live my life scared of things getting too good. That just sounds wild coming out of my mouth. Instead, I'm going to say I'm excited to see how good things are going to get. And that little mantra, I think, is going to change everything. Last year when I turned 30, that's when I really embraced gratitude and became ritualistic with my gratitude journaling. So for 31, I'm embracing abundance. Let it get good and let it keep getting good and let it get good for all of the people I love around me. Okay, so those are the 3 biggest things that I've learned so far in trauma therapy. That the things we might consider little t trauma might actually be big T trauma. That it doesn't matter, actually, if it's a little t or a big T trauma. If it is taking over your mind and your life, you are so worthy of getting help. In fact, you're worthy of getting help no matter what. we're humans and we're allowed to grow and evolve. And sometimes we just need a little help to do that. Now, I don't know if those 3 lessons resonate with anybody else, but they feel like I have grown leaps and bounds from just acknowledging them, I think, and also working through them and processing them, which is such a relief because I had such a concern of, is this going to be worth it? And there were 2 main reasons why I was so worried that trauma therapy might just be a huge waste. One, it is a financial burden. Not every health insurance covers trauma therapy. Mine helps, but I'm still spending $500 a month on just trauma therapy, and that does not include my regular talk therapy. So that's expensive to put on my family, but also it made me worry that if it was a flop, that I had just lit money on fire. And I've done healing wellness things before that have flopped, and I have felt immense guilt. Misplaced, I didn't need to carry that, but I felt the guilt of a financial burden and wasting money on something that didn't even help me get better. But I'm so relieved because in 3 sessions, where all we've done is the talk therapy part, we haven't even opened up the EMDR or hypnosis part, I feel like I've gotten to relax a little bit. My muscles don't all feel so tight all the time. I feel like I'm able to breathe a little bit easier. I haven't been having as many night terrors. I'm falling asleep easier. I'm staying asleep. And I just feel safer. And that is priceless. I would spend much more money to feel this way again. So if it's a financial question, it is so worth it. And the second thing I was really worried about of, is this going to be worth it? Is there is a notion that trauma therapy can lead to autoimmune or chronic illness flare-ups. You're really digging up the most awful shit that's happened to you in your life, and you're bringing it right to the surface. And it is, in my opinion. And I think that there's a mind-body connection, which in the comments section, let's talk about it. Now, I believe that there is a mind-body connection, and if you disagree, let me know. But if there is, then this would make sense. You're dredging up all of this emotional heaviness to the surface. It's going to have physical consequences. So a flare-up actually makes a lot of sense to me. And when I'm personally looking back at those traumas happening in real time, a flare-up did follow. So with that in mind, I was pretty worried about, am I going to get myself into a worse spot physically just to help the mental, and is that worth it? Well, my trauma therapist is brilliant and has chronic illness in mind, and had my chronic illness in mind when she was building my protocol. So the way we are approaching it is some talk therapy, some EMDR, and some hypnosis. The plan for that is chat therapy makes me comfortable. The EMDR brings up all of the deepest memories of that trauma from deep within the left hemisphere of my brain up to the surface, and then the hypnosis kind of detaches it from my body. And the hope is that that hypnosis part of the equation pushes out the flare-up and says no, and it protects the peace in my body. So stay tuned to see if that actually happens. Fingers crossed, we will know within the next 2 to 3 weeks if EMDR makes my physical much worse than it was prior. And then I might change my answer on is it worth it or not. Okay, now that I've relived all of my trauma therapy sessions, I have about 1 brain cell left, physically and emotionally. So let's talk my 1 brain cell picks, which I'm now realizing I completely forgot to do my Alex's pick, so actually let's do that first. So my first pick is Tilt Beauty. It's a non-toxic clean beauty brand, but the founders and the creators and the team behind it had accessibility in mind when they launched this brand. So think packaging. So I know we all laugh and joke about how it's really hard to open some things with our little crunchy wrists. They had that in mind when they made this makeup line. Check it out, link below. I'm trying to work on a discount code. My second pick of the week is the Perelel green powder, which is kind of like the AG1 green powder. But I like Perelel because it's made by an OBGYN, and all of their product lines have women's health as their forefront and North Star, meaning that their different offerings and supplements and nutrition, supplement offerings all have our hormones in mind, which gives me peace of mind, and also like I'm doing something to help on the hormone front, which is lovely. It also tastes good, and I know I'm getting all my greens in, so I will be continuing to drink that, working on a discount code for you guys, but link in the description below. Now for real, 1 brain cell show. It's Mike Birbiglia's stand-up comedy. He is so freaking funny. He has had a host of his own health crises that he's dealt with throughout his life, but like my favorite people tend to do, has become a dark comedian. Has become a comedian with that flavor of dark humor. Walks the line perfectly. Incredibly relatable content if you are chronically ill, but also still enjoyable to a healthy person. Cooper was laughing his face off while we were watching his most recent stand-up. It's on Netflix. It's perfect for a Friday night or a rainy Sunday. I hope you enjoy it during your next duvet day, and stay tuned on how the rest of trauma therapy goes. I love you guys. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining me for another week of Calling in Sick. As a reminder, I would love for y'all to like, follow, subscribe, save, share with a friend, do all of the things. It truly helps grow this community, and it helps these episodes reach the people that need them the most, whether that's for an educational piece, to have a little laugh, or to not feel so alone. As a reminder, Calling in Sick sits on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify, and anywhere else where you can find your listens. From the bottom of my heart, I absolutely love you guys. Thank you so much for calling in sick with me every Monday. It's been an honor and a pleasure so far, and I can't wait to continue. I can't wait to continue building this community with y'all. Love you.